Did Triple H make a big mistake on Raw? Exploring potential blood feud that might be canned. Things have been going rather well for Triple H lately. For the most part, he has been producing hit episodes of Raw and SmackDown. However, that is not to say that each edition is flawless. As with everything, there are bound to be mistakes, and last night, the game might have made a big one. It could see the WWE Universe miss out on a potential blood feud. On Raw, fans were treated to an interaction between Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser. After the tension from last week and the loss Kaiser suffered at the hands of Damian Priest, one would assume things would be even worse between the two. But it seems as though Triple H and WWE have decided to shelf that, as the Imperium teammates had a cordial chat. Although the ring general is occupied with the Archer of Infamy right now, some were hopeful of seeing the storyline revolving around the World Heavyweight Champion and Ludwig Kaiser progress. Kaiser backstabbing Gunther would have resulted in a compelling blood feud. But as of now, it does not seem to be in the cards. Of course, these are just early days, and there is still a chance that Triple H might revisit this potential feud in the future. That said, it remains nothing more than speculation at this point. After all, there is no telling what WWE Creative has planned for the duo. Whether or not Gunther will eventually have to deal with Ludwig Kaiser is something Triple H can explore later. Right now, he has a big few weeks ahead of him. First, he must see through a successful edition of Survivor Series, War Games, and then comes the most important move: Raw's transition from the USA Network to Netflix. It is a huge moment as WWE leaves cable television and moves to an OTT platform. The first episode is expected to be a grand affair, with several superstars likely to make an appearance. John Cena, Cody Rhodes, and Roman Reigns, among others, will be present at Intuit Dome. The excitement is palpable, and things are sure to get even more hectic in the final days leading up to the event. Hopefully, the cerebral assassin will be able to see through a successful transition and produce yet another amazing episode of the Red Brand. Triple H has been celebrated as the creative mastermind behind WWE's resurgence over the past year. His tenure as the Chief Content Officer has reinvigorated fan interest with coherent storytelling, nuanced character work, and long-term booking. Yet even the best wrestling bookers are not immune to missteps. Recently on Monday Night Raw, WWE fans witnessed a segment that set social media ablaze, not because of its brilliance, but because it hinted at a storyline with enormous potential that could now be on the chopping block. Was this a miscalculation on Triple H's part? Or is it a premature reaction from a passionate fanbase hungry for compelling storytelling? Let's dive into the situation, analyze what went down on Raw, and examine the consequences of potentially shelving what could have been WWE's next blood feud. The segment in question involved two of WWE's most intriguing stars, Seth "Freakin' Rollins, the reigning World Heavyweight Champion, and Drew McIntyre, the embittered powerhouse who has grown increasingly disillusioned with WWE's landscape. For weeks, McIntyre has walked the line between justified frustration and outright villainy, pointing out the hypocrisy of others while refusing to embrace the dark side fully. Their match at Crown Jewel was an instant classic, with Rollins narrowly retaining his title. However, the aftermath saw McIntyre's slow-burn transformation into a full-blown heel take center stage. Fans speculated that his newfound aggression would lead him into a no-holds-barred rivalry with Rollins, one dripping with personal stakes and visceral intensity. But then came Raw, where McIntyre unexpectedly shifted his attention elsewhere, to Jey Uso. This abrupt pivot left fans scratching their heads. The brewing animosity between Rollins and McIntyre suddenly seemed abandoned, leaving the WWE Universe to wonder, was this feud dead on arrival? Rollins represents resilience, reinvention, and triumph against adversity. As a champion, he embodies the modern-day workhorse, taking on all challenges despite his nagging injuries. McIntyre, in stark contrast, has grown bitter over being overlooked and undervalued despite his contributions during the pandemic era. These opposing mindsets create natural tension. McIntyre's grievances are rooted in truth. He carried WWE through the Thunderdome era, only to be sidelined when fans returned. His bitterness feels authentic, making him a relatable antagonist. Rollins, on the other hand, has been portrayed as the ultimate survivor, making his championship reign feel earned. The emotional stakes of their feud would resonate deeply with fans. Both Rollins and McIntyre are at the top of their game in the ring. Their styles complement each other, with Rollins' agility and creativity perfectly counterbalancing McIntyre's brute strength and methodical pacing. A series of matches between them could easily rival legendary rivalries like Rock vs. Austin or Shawn Michaels vs. The Undertaker. The seeds of their rivalry had already been planted. McIntyre's disdain for Rollins' heroic facade and Rollins' growing frustration with his own physical limitations provided fertile ground for a deeply personal feud. His slow build culminating in a brutal showdown at WrestleMania could have been storytelling gold. The sudden involvement of Jey Uso complicates matters. While Jey is an integral part of WWE's landscape, his ongoing redemption arc feels disconnected from McIntyre's narrative. The idea of McIntyre targeting Jey over perceived favoritism by the locker room feels less compelling than his issues with Rollins. Some fans argue that this shift waters down McIntyre's character. Instead of becoming a menacing threat to Rollins, he risks being relegated to a side plot that does little to elevate either man. One of Triple H's strengths as a booker is his ability to weave complex, interconnected storylines. However, there's a fine line between intricate storytelling and overcomplication. By redirecting McIntyre's focus to Jey Uso, WWE risks diluting the emotional weight of his character arc. It's possible that Triple H sees McIntyre vs. Jey as a stepping stone, a way to build McIntyre's heel persona before revisiting his issues with Rollins. But wrestling fans are notoriously impatient, and the longer this detour lasts, the harder it will be to regain momentum for a Rollins-McIntyre feud. If WWE is committed to pursuing McIntyre vs. Rollins, they need to tread carefully. Here's how they can salvage the storyline. A simple backstage confrontation or promo could reignite the tension between Rollins and McIntyre. Have McIntyre remind Rollins that their story isn't over and that he's merely biding his time before striking again. WWE could allow McIntyre to feud with Jey Uso while keeping his issues with Rollins simmering in the background. This approach would give McIntyre layers, making him feel like a legitimate threat on multiple fronts. To raise the stakes, McIntyre could cost Rollins the World Heavyweight Championship, perhaps to someone like Damian Priest or Finn Balor. This act of betrayal would escalate their feud to new heights, setting the stage for a grudge match. WWE thrives on personal storytelling, incorporating real-life elements such as McIntyre's struggles during the pandemic or Rollins' history of injuries could add emotional depth to their rivalry. If WWE decides to abandon Rollins vs. McIntyre altogether, it would be a significant missed opportunity. A blood feud between these two could have anchored Raw for months, elevating both men in the process. Worse, it could hurt McIntyre's credibility as a top-tier heel. Without a meaningful feud, he risks becoming just another mid-card villain, a fate unworthy of a talent of his caliber. For Rollins, the lack of compelling challenges could make his title reign feel stagnant. While there's no shortage of potential opponents, few have the star power or narrative weight of McIntyre. Triple H has earned the trust of the WWE Universe, but even the best storytellers make mistakes. The decision to pivot McIntyre's focus away from Rollins feels like a misstep, but it's not too late to course correct. Fans must exercise patience and trust that WWE has a long-term plan in mind. That said, wrestling is an art form that thrives on passion and immediacy. If WWE waits too long to pull the trigger on Rollins vs. McIntyre, they risk losing the emotional investment of their audience. Let's hope Triple H recognizes the potential of this feud and gives it the spotlight it deserves. For now, all eyes are on Raw to see what comes next. Will McIntyre's descent into darkness lead him back to Rollins, or will this blood feud be another what if in WWE history? Only time will tell.